welcome everybody to Heal, where we are definitely breaking barriers, busting myths, and bringing you tomorrow's healing technology today. And our guest today, Dr. Patrick K. Porter, is certainly doing this and has been doing this for over 3 decades. So welcome, Dr. Porter.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, it's a privilege and an honor to introduce everybody to Dr. Patrick K. Porter, an acclaimed neuroscientist, entrepreneur, and lifetime achievement awardee of the, I'm going to get this right, of the Interdisciplinary Association of Functional Neurosciences and Rehabilitation. With his breakthroughs in brainwave entrainment technology, notably the BrainTap platform, Dr. Porter has revolutionized our approach to brain fitness and lifestyle improvements. And for all of that, I want to say thank you. And for everybody who has no idea what BrainTap is, I just want to show you this fabulous device that Daniel and I use all the time. And it is just,
I think you got it backwards.
Oh, I've got it on backwards. Glad you're here. Glad you're here.
Yes.
Okay, but look at this.
Yep.
All right. And so when we have Dr. Porter in our head, literally in our head, we've got lights flashing, in our eyes. And this is so, apart from it being so much fun, I have to tell you that it really works. And most of you do know that Daniel and I are huge proponents of meditation and create our own divinely inspired meditations all the time. So I've got some fabulous questions here for you, Dr. Porter, or can I call you Patrick?
Yes, Patrick's fine.
Yes. Patrick. So how does this BrainTap technology influence neuroplasticity, and what are the long-term implications of regular BrainTap sessions on the brain health? Before you answer that one, a lot of people probably don't know what neuroplasticity is, so you might want to
think of neuroplasticity as the brain's capacity to work. So you think about, we used to think that the brain was solid, you know, that once we're like, if we're a carpenter, we're a carpenter. If you're an English teacher, you're an English teacher. If you're a musician, you're a musician. What we now know is the brain can be molded like clay. So that's why they call it plasticity. So we can mold that. And we know that as we age, unfortunately, there's a few things we all know as we age. My dad used to say, getting old isn't for sissies, right? So we have to, you have to have things that you can do. So what we need to do for our brain is we need to keep challenging our brain, but in a way that is supportive, you know, like sports and fun activities. And so our brain neuroplasticity needs energy. So think of it as, if we measure your energy in your brain, that will tell me your neuroplasticity score. And it comes in a form of ATP. And so when you showed the headset there, the BrainTap headset, what you're showing them is the light that's emitted through the ears and the eyes. And this low-level photic energy is actually causing something called the Krebs cycle, for those that know the science, but I'll simplify it a little bit here so people understand. But every cell has a mitochondria in it. And that job of the mitochondria is to absorb and transmit light. And it's not just a function of you feeling better, it's actually communicating. Those 75 trillion cells are all communicating by something called biophotic light. And so when we give light energy to the brain, all of our nervous system works better. So we can switch from the autonomic nervous system, you know, from parasympathetic to sympathetic to neurohormonal. Those are all key features in staying healthy. You know, some people they have an illness or they have a stress response, and then they get locked into that stress response and they're not able to get out of it. So neuroplasticity, if you think of, you can have neuroplasticity in a negative way too. You know, you can have negative trauma. The opposite of that, and I think it's just as important to tell them, is called neuropruning. Just like if you had a garden in your backyard, you'd want the good plants to grow and the weeds to be pruned. We need to prune out the negative, but it takes energy, right? Like when somebody's going to, let's say you're having an addiction, or you have a crisis because maybe a death in the family or something, that grieving process is really the neuroplastic effect of somebody not being there, because our brain is always predicting the future. So I know that's a long-winded answer to what you asked, but I think it's important to understand that our brain is always rewiring. So while they're watching this event, the HEAL event, if you can get one new thought in, this is one of the things I love about neuroscience. They've proven that one new thought means the whole brain has to rewire around the constellation of that one new thought to accommodate it. So as you're listening to each of the speakers, if you just think, wow, my whole brain is rewiring. You know, when you have that aha effect, you go, wow, that's an aha moment. That means your brain literally started to rewire at that moment. And the more we can adapt, the one who adapts the most flexible part of the system controls the system. So we want to make sure that neural permeability, if you will, is really active. And to exercise it, you need energy. And that's where the BrainTap comes in, what you're wearing.
Wow, that's amazing. Because I've often said that when people participate in an event like this and have an experience where if they get one new thing out of this, like today, everybody's got one new thing just from you in this first couple of minutes, right? So the brain is actually going, oh, okay. So the light highway, there's a light highway of information, yeah? David Schmidt from LifeWave talks about the light mitochondria, their light energy as well, and how important it is.
And I love that product. It's great. Yeah.
Isn't it great? So we love that we know that a lot of people now are talking about the light frequencies and the frequencies that are rising due to the brain's ability to be neuroplastic, right? Neuroplasticity.
Right. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Most people don't realize that we are light beings. I mean, even in the Bible, it says the sound became light, you know, so everything is light. At some point, it becomes energy and it emits a photic discharge. And what we're finding now is that has to do with our health. If we don't have high mitochondrial function, we don't have health. If we have high mitochondrial function, like when we're younger, we get away with things, you know, we can eat more junk food and run around and do those things because we have more energy at the cellular level. So anything we can do to feed the cells to get that spark, that light to be brighter. And we're all transmitting and receiving light all the time. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. But so that light energy is why we are attracted to people, why we want to learn from certain people. And the more open you are and receptive, the more light you absorb and use. And it's important, of course, you remember your identity, but we need to know that we are the sum total of the 5 closest friends we have because of the energy transference.
Yeah, that's an important point. And by the way, talking about light and we're emitting light, I can actually, one of my gifts is I can see light, and I'm actually looking at the light as you're speaking. You've got this amazing amount of white light coming out of your body. However, around your head, it's a beautiful aquary, greeny color, which is what, you know, where you're creating all of these thoughts. So from my point of view, being able to see people emit the light is so much fun. And it also tells me a lot about where people are at. You know, if they're emitting the colors that you're emitting, you're on point. You know, I'm going to call you're in angel mode at the moment. That's what I'd like to say. So I mean, we could talk about this all day, but so given BrainTap's classification as a low risk general wellness device by the FDA, would you elaborate on how BrainTap fits within the current landscape of wellness technologies? Like, what advantages does it offer even compared to other wellness technologies?
Right. I think I believe that we always have to do things together. For real healing to happen, we need to eat right. You know, you cannot think a bad diet unless you're Saint Germain or something, and you can transmute that negative food into positive food. So anything you can do, and that's a stressor, right? If you're eating junk food all the time, that stresses the body and it will eventually stress the brain. So diet is important. But if you're doing the BrainTap with it, now, because the gut-brain connection is so powerful, the vagus nerve, if we can get the person out of the sympathetic, that fight or flight response, if we can get them into a parasympathetic state, you have a healing system. Our body and brain are designed to heal, but we can't be in fight or flight and heal at the same time. So we have to choose. So that's why we have to have that downtime. So we can be as active and go-getter as we want, but if we're so much going after the goal that we don't take time to enjoy it, that's why they always say stop and smell the roses, right? So we have to stop and really gather our thoughts. We're the sum total. We're information systems. At the very basic, what we are, we're 99.9999 whatever to the infinite power of zero, nothing. We're information, you know, and when they've done the studies of death, they say that we lose about 3/4 of an ounce. That's who we are. So when we're talking about healing, what we're really talking about is healing these bodies, not us. We don't get sick. We're going to be wherever we're going to be doing whatever we're going to be doing. But our spacesuit, if you will, our travel system is going to need. So when we're talking about that, is we need to create the environment. We all know people that were in a bad relationship and then they got into a better relationship and their health changed, their life changed, it became more positive because your environment plays a big role. And part of that is moving and breathing. So what BrainTap does is gives you the energy to do those things, because if you're too sedentary, they now say that 20 minutes of sitting is equivalent to smoking a cigarette. You know, and most people I know will not smoke a cigarette today. You know, they know, but when I was growing up, I mean, in the 60s, you know, my parents and grandparents, you'd go to their house, we'd be walking through, we thought we were at a rock concert every day because everybody's smoking cigarettes because they didn't know any better. They were told, hey, smoke a cigarette, relax. You know, things are changing all the time. So, but one thing we do know is we're not active enough. And so BrainTap will give you the energy to get up off that couch and start doing something. Because we really do live in an energy economy. If you don't, and you can't heal if you don't have energy. So, you know, and energy is truly voltage at the cell level. So you know, we measure it here at the lab all the time in the brain. So the biggest thing we find is that most people that are ill, and we're doing a Parkinson's studies right now, we've done it with ADHD and ADD, we see the brain profile is pretty similar. It's pretty shocking. And what we're finding is just the age that's different. So the age makes the outcome different. So if they have a mismatched voltage in the brain, let's say they have 9 volts in the right hemisphere or in the left hemisphere and 10 volts in the right hemisphere, they're going to have Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's. But if we can get that brain to match, and that's where BrainTap comes in with the biocular vision, you know, where you're getting into the eyes. So your eyes are closed, and what we're doing is we're actually activating regions of the brain to get that neuroplasticity. Think of it like going to the gym. We're going to exercise the regions of the brain to keep them active, because there's a saying, right? Use it or lose it. You know, so as we age, unfortunately, we become very repetitive. We all know people that they just simply drive the same way home every day. They sit on the couch every day. They watch the same TV shows every day. They pass out at the same time every day. They wake up and rinse and repeat. That's the death kill to the brain. We need to be looking at what can we do differently today? How can we walk around our neighborhood a different way, or maybe even walk backwards? You know, something we need to just keep having fun like we did when we were kids. You know, just giving ourselves exciting new tasks, and it will be stressful, but we need to make stress more fun than what we get, of course, on television. That's the negative neuroplasticity, when people are trying to program us into fear and anxiety and frustration. So I think where BrainTap comes in the most is, let's say you're taking the world's greatest supplements. Congratulations. But if you're in a high state of stress, you're not going to metabolize, digest, and use those nutrients, because your gut is going to be in a fight or flight state. All your blood is going to be in your extremities, because your brain doesn't know that there's not a saber-toothed tiger right behind you. It thinks that, hey, this is the stress level, but you just got a text. It wasn't a tiger, you know, or maybe it was some news about some crazy thing about politics that you can't control anyway, but you get upset about it. So I think the biggest thing it does is emotions drive behavior. And so in healing, we need to learn how to use our emotions to our benefit, because energy is motion. Energy and motion is emotion. So if we don't want to let the energy emote us, we want to let the energy really heal us, because that energy just wants to be used. It's like electricity in the wall. We can plug in a hair dryer, or we can plug in an electric chair. You know, we want to plug into the power for health and healing, but we have to, it's a frequency. And I love a good friend of mine, Doug Grant, says frequency is what we frequently see. So BrainTap can change your perception of what you frequently see, because if your top of the mind is my health, my vitality, that I'm doing something positive today for my brain, then your behaviors will mimic that, because you're taking an action toward it. You know, the old saying, faith without works is dead. So we've got to have the faith that it's going to work, but then we got to take the actions. And BrainTap is one action. And a lot of people go, well, I can't do it. I don't have time to do it. And I love the Dalai Lama, when somebody said, he goes, when should I meditate? I don't have any time. He says, if you don't have time, do it twice a day.
Yes,
So
I absolutely love that too. You know, Patrick, you've just given me like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was trying to count up how many gems and pieces of wisdom that you just imparted then, and I lost count, because what you just said was so incredible. And I have to say this, that you're validating the fact that I'm doing a webinar on Saturday called Frequency Rising. And
awesome.
it is all about what you were just talking about. And one of the things that I heard you say that you didn't say was this fear of change. And that unless we will make change and change, it's like the brain wants change. Even though right from the beginning of mankind, we've been, I would say, we've been really taught, or I don't know whether we were taught it or it was an innate moving away from change, like always trying to move away from change, trying to keep ourselves safe, or the ego mind trying to keep ourselves safe by having everything the same all of the day, the rinse and repeat, which is what you said. However, I just want to say to everybody, please, please listen to this interview at least 100 more times, because what Patrick just said then was so important to your overall health and well-being. And living with a beloved husband who has Parkinson's now, he's going to be listening to this 100 times, but more importantly, he's going to be putting these on the minute I get off this interview. Love it. So, yeah, in your research, because obviously I had no idea you were doing such incredible research and that you've got a lab with BrainTap. How have you addressed the role of trauma in brain function? And and can BrainTap sessions assist in the rehabilitation of individuals with trauma-related brain injuries? This is a big one.
That's a great question. And trauma, now I think since 2020, we all have a little trauma, because they shocked our world with, whether it was real or not is another question, but they shocked us, and they changed, they altered the way we think about things. We now, unfortunately, a great number of people look at other people as a problem, that they could be carrying a virus or something. It's crazy. We have an innate intelligence that can do it. But what happens with trauma in the brain is the brain starts to wire around that trauma. And in our life, when you look back at your life, we really remember our very high times in our life and our very low times in our life. And if we've had too many traumatic events, what it does, it becomes almost like a filter that prevents you from seeing the good times. You start to just see that trauma. And then you start to, the Buddha once said, if you're a Buddha, everybody's a Buddha. If you're an alcoholic, everybody's an alcoholic. If you're you see the world through your own filtered lenses. So what we need to do with trauma, what BrainTap does is, you have to have energy to do that neural pruning that I talked about at the very beginning. Trauma needs to be neural pruned. It's not happening now. And we can't go, I'll tell you a story of a girl that I saw in New York. It was I'll make it as quick as I can. She walked in and she looked like she was going to a funeral. Her head was down. She looked like she was moping. She was all in black, which, New York, that's the way they dress, but I asked for a volunteer that had something traumatic happen to them, because I was doing a demonstration for a group of doctors, and she volunteered. Well, we found out, unfortunately, that she had a trauma in Central Park. She had been running, and she was molested and raped, and it was a terrible thing. And it happened 4 years ago. But when she was describing it, you would think it was happening right now. Now, the subconscious does not know the difference between real or imagined. So it was happening right now. And they never found the people. They will never find the people. And I said, and I didn't do it quite abruptly like this, but I said, what is worse, having it done once or doing it to yourself every day for the last 4 years? We have to release that. Right now, you're giving your power of happiness over to an event that happened 4 years ago. You're not running anymore in Central Park in night. She ran at night by herself. There were a lot of things she could have done differently. Of course, you beat yourself up because of that. But I said, we can't go back and change the past. If we can find a device that does that, I'm first in line. I was married once before. I met my wife with 35 years. I would have loved to have her the first time instead of the second time. But we have to deal, the cards have been dealt in the past, but we can change the cards we get in the future, because we can change the game we sit down to play. So we can sit down and play a different game. So what we need to do is reframe that. So with trauma, and what we do with BrainTap is, we store things through something called submodalities. Our brain stores them in our sensory systems. So if a trauma is stored in color, we need to make that black and white. It's a past event. We need to put it behind us. You know, people say that all the time. They might be in a bad relationship and then you meet them a year later and go, how's it going with Bob? Oh, Bob's behind me now. They say that. So why don't we put it behind you? And then if we can, one of the best things we can do is forgive them, but more importantly, forgive ourselves for putting ourselves in that situation. And if it happened when you were a kid and you didn't realize it, everyone is doing the best they can with the information they have, even though, and that might not be true on a everyday level for people, but on a spiritual, psycho-spiritual level, it is. Because it's hard to say, why would somebody do that? But it's kind of like, I tell people, it's like Wile E. Coyote in the Roadrunner. There's a cartoon where at the end of the cartoon, they punch out of, and then they hold hands and they walk off in the distance. But the whole time in the cartoon, they're fighting. Someday we're all going to go to wherever that is that we go to. We're going to punch out. We're all going to be friends again because this is a game, you know. And if we can kind of look at trauma now, at first, when the trauma is so harsh and so raw, you can't do that. That's because we've got to build you back up. You're not wrong. You're not broken. You didn't, you know, you did this because you want a superpower. You know, there's the dark night of the soul. You know, Campbell talks about it all the time. We all go through this. We all have our dark night of the soul. And that is a blessing after we're through it. Now, when you're in the middle of it, it's a curse. But we have to remember that every superhero had to go through the dark night of the soul to get their superpowers. Now, if you can learn from that event, whatever that trauma was, I guarantee you there's thousands of people lined up to learn from you how you did it. So imagine you are the pioneer, and unfortunately pioneers have arrows in their back. So you've got to get through it. But if you're loud and proud enough, you will help a lot of people. And that's what I tell people. You know, it's kind of like if you can get through it, that's why I'm doing this today. I mean, I was held back in second grade. I was a learning disabled kid. I mean, I was in little groups of 4 and 5 kids. I was told I was never going to be smart, but my dad didn't believe that. He taught me how to meditate and taught me to think bigger, had me read books like As a Man Thinketh, Think and Grow Rich, all these kind of books. And my brain said, you know what, I had that neuroplastic experience. But once they realize that they're not the victim anymore, you can be the victim in somebody else's story, or you can take the lead role and have your own performance. You know,
Patrick, the way you're speaking helps me to understand the power of the meditations that you take us through, because obviously the last 2 years have been traumatic, and the trauma is, we're constantly trying to put it behind us, but when we're in it, right?
mm-hmm.
The fact is that BrainTap is actually helping us. We always feel better because we choose. You give us myriad meditations and visualizations to use in order to reframe where we are at. And I wished I had have met you a long time ago. I want to talk to you for the next 100 years. You are so amazing. And by the way, just so you know, and on Saturday during the webinar, I will be doing this, that one of the gifts that I have come through with is being able to tap into the matrix of your soul, your brain, your mind, and emotional reality, and discover the events, emotions, and decisions, the trauma that is still locked in the body, that is on an unconscious level, creating havoc for us without us even knowing it. And you're saying exactly the same thing. And so I have the ability, I've been taught by spirit how to neutralize and delete that. So if you can neutralize and delete the unconscious mind and past trauma, and you can use BrainTap to then reboot the brain. Is it like reboot or reframe the brain?
Yeah, the brain, we're recycling the brain every 40 seconds. Gets a whole new set of instruction sets. So you're rebooting every cell at that point. So, you know, as you change your thoughts, your environment, your food, your people, I tell people it changes based on everything. So you want to stack the odds in your favor. You know, so.
I'm going to ask you a question that's not in my questions, but I really, really want to, hang on, I just need to get rid of this, whatever this is. Fireflies, no, take a pat. Is that you?
Oh yeah, that's one of my That's one of my people that follows me.
Could you ask them to leave?
I just think you just don't accept them or something.
No, they're in for somehow. Let me
I mean,
see.
yeah, it doesn't let me do anything because I think it's your,
Yeah, I'll just remove.
there it
Yeah.
goes. It's gone.
Great. So, where was I? Sorry.
You were going to tell me something that wasn't on your notes.
Yeah, that wasn't on my notes. I was going to talk to you about how people have never understood, really understood the way the brain works the way you do. Like, unless you do the research, unless you devote your life, you're actually a master of neuroscience, because when you've spent this many decades, you understand. And I understand that's why people want you to talk at all of these conferences and everything.
Mm.
But there's a time and a place where we have to be courageous, where we have to step in and love ourselves enough to want to make the change and to choose to use the technologies that are available to us now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, actually, at the last show I was at in Vegas, the American Naturopathic Medical Association, one of my doctors came over and said that he had a client actually stop using BrainTap because it changed the way she thought about sugar, and she wasn't eating it anymore. And she didn't think she could do that the rest of her life, so she had to stop using it. I said, well, that's the worst thing you can do for your body is overeat sugar, right? I mean, that's we know that's like a landmine, but and he thought it was a good thing, but the user, so like she wasn't ready. I said, when she's ready, some people have to get just sick enough to do it. But hopefully, I tell people you don't have to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough. So many people wait for a breakdown to have their breakthrough. You can have a break. You can choose your breakthrough date. You can start working for it today. You don't have to say, okay, I'm not going to do it till I lose my job or till my relationship goes sour or whatever. You can start to create that breakthrough every day. I always look for something today that's going to be breakthrough thinking. Something's going to happen today.
I'm in love with you. This is just so exciting because I actually share the LifeWave technology, and I will be sharing the BrainTap technology because they really work well together. But I have people say to me, oh, I don't care about reverse aging, or there's nothing wrong with me. And it's like, okay, you just had the answer for that. Don't wait for the drama. Don't wait for the disease. Don't wait for something to be wrong before you decide that this is all preventative. It's all how we're going to use the brain and actually help this divine high frequency being that we are emit more light. And it feels like you have a technology just like LifeWave has that helps us really plug our light source in and emit more light. And people are attracted to that. I am absolutely certain you have people come up to you the way I have people come up to me and they say, what is it? What's going on? What are you doing? I'm sure you have people like that, right?
Yeah, they ask me all the time, what's so happy over here? What's going on?
Exactly. Because the happiness is how you have trained your brain to be in this world and to be emitting this much light. Boy, I'm sure this is not the interview you expected, but it's the one we're having and I'm loving it. So thank you.
All right.
All right. Okay, I love this question. As the field of brain fitness evolves, what future innovations do you foresee for BrainTap? Are there any upcoming features or studies that you are particularly excited about?
Yeah. Well, we were talking offline. We do have a Parkinson's study going on in Brazil, and it's going really well. But we add another feature to BrainTap. And what we've decided as a company is we're going to build out this system where you get a brain cap and then a gut pad at the same time. Now we have it separately now, but we're going to build it together because the more energy right now, we need more energy, healing energy. And this is not only for Parkinson's, but also for sleep. 2/3 of the world isn't sleeping and they don't realize it's because of energy. So many people, we know when children get too tired and they go, they're too tired to sleep. Well, most adults are too tired to sleep. That's why 2/3 of the world isn't sleeping. It's not, but they don't need a Snickers bar like in television. They're trying to tell you what they need is mitochondrial health. They need ATP. So we need to get the brain going. So the more energy we can give, I do this red light therapy that I'm talking about, the cap and the gut pad every night. I travel with it because I'm 63 and I plan on being with my grandkids, you know, and playing on the boat and having fun as long as I can. Not like my grandparents. I mean, my grandpa was like, thought he was dead at this age. You know, they were taught, oh, you retire and expire. But this generation that we live in now, we understand that we have a longer life and more life in our years, not just, you know, I don't want to be 100 years old and somebody take care of me for the last 20 years. I want to have a great life. And I hope that up to the day that I depart, that I'm able to be active. And our cells in our body are designed to do that. But it's all about light. If our body doesn't get light energy, give it up. You can take all the great, like I said earlier, you can take all the great nutrition, you can do all the physical fitness, and we've done scans with physical. We're going to be at our event in September with BrainTap with 300 of the most advanced physiologists that are doing bodybuilding. You know, these are people, they've spent their lifetime sculpting their bodies and they look great. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to scan them and their brains are going to be terrible because they don't do anything. You can build your muscles, and that's not a good thing, really. We're not designed to look like those Adonis. You know, there's certain people that naturally do that. That's a lot of work for your heart. You know, and then when they get their HRVs and they're going to say, well, I'm healthy, I'm eating. No, it's more than that. It has to be, there's something called the psychoimmunology equation. You know, we have to, what we think about, we bring about, and all those kind of things. When everything has to line up. And I think that what we're going to be doing with BrainTap and the research we want to show is, what if you could put on that BrainTap and get a 9-parameter checklist of your nervous system at the same time? It spits it out and gives you a score. That's what we're working on right now. We have the technology. We're just doing that so that you can know, because it's invisible, right? When you do a meditation or you do a relaxation or even put on the light wave patches, people don't even know that something's happening, but the physiology knows, and it will record it. And that's why I use the light patches and things, and I use the BrainTap because I've measured it, and I know if it doesn't move the nervous system, it didn't move physical reality, and I'm not interested in that. And we are spiritual beings in this physical reality, not physical beings trying to become more spiritual. You know, we can't be more than we are. That'd be like saying I'm going to be more ocean if you're a drop of the ocean. No, you're just because you're a drop of the ocean doesn't mean you're any less of the ocean. But we have to activate that system. And like you said, this divine being that's inside of every one of us right now, the stress, the chemical, emotional, spiritual pollution that we've been fed since we were born, we've got to clear that out and let our light shine. You know, that's the big thing.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, Patrick, this is refreshingly wondrous. I love it when I meet another angel and we get the opportunity to hear your wisdom and what you're doing. And I can hardly wait to start using the red light brain and gut health. And of course, we know that the brain gut health is so connected. And it's very interesting for me with Daniel with Parkinson's, who's taken supplements all of his life. He's probably the healthiest unwell person I've ever met. And I realized that there's been toxicity from so many things, like the plastic in the foods and everything in the brain that we have to detox all of the time. But truly, I can tell, and I'm sure it's like this with a lot of people, and I've been clearing them, that those arrows in the back that have been trauma, that have been betrayal, and that have been really being stabbed in the back over and over and over again, they are the things that create the trauma that stop the brain from actually moving forward. Is it moving forward or expanding? What happens?
We call it capacity. You know, we need to have capacity. So we have just think of it like you have a cup and you only get 8 ounces, but we can go grab a bigger cup. We've got to, you know, we can have as big a cup as we want, but most people told, no, you have to use that 8-ounce cup. That's like our brain, the capacity of our brain to function. We need to expand its capacity. And they're always saying we're only using 5 to 10% of our brain. In neuroscience, we know you use 100% of your brain. You just don't use its capacity. I just did
that. You are using 100% of your brain. You're just not using it to capacity. One more question, because I know I'm keeping you longer than I should, but how do we use our brain to capacity? I mean, obviously
you have to keep practicing it. And that's what we call future pacing. the biggest shocker to the brain for stress is that something happens we're not anticipating. But Deepak Chopra said it best back in the 90s, actually. He said 97% of what's going to happen to you tomorrow, you know about today. What are you pretending not to know? But if we can be prescient, we can use we all are clairvoyant, we're all clairaudient. We just pretend we don't know. And then when it happens, we go, I can't believe that happened. What do you mean you can't believe it happened? Everybody was telling you it was going to happen. You know, and that's where meditation and mindfulness and BrainTap come in, because you have to slow everything down, gather your thoughts. If you can't sit with your own thoughts, that's the first step. If you can't be alone and not feel alone, because you're never alone, you know that, because you can see the energy of the beings around and things like that. So we all have these guardian angels, and we all have spiritual support, but most people never ask. And so the first thing is to sit in silence.
Yeah. There's a fear factor in becoming more of who we are, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I'll be going into that on Saturday. But Patrick Porter, you are an amazing human being, and the world is so grateful for having you on it, for having you in it, because you are doing such an incredible job. This has changed our lives. The LifeWave patches combining, and your new technology that's coming out, more light. Can hardly wait to get and be using that. So for everybody, please, again, please listen to this interview as many times as you can, because there are so many droplets of wisdom in this ocean of interview that we've just done, because I feel like I'm in a big ocean with you. and where you've given me this huge wave to ride on and to explore and to understand that we are so much more than what we think we are. And if you're interested in BrainTap, believe me, I'm going to be sending you a link to use so that you can start using your BrainTap every day, like Daniel and I are. And don't tell me that you haven't got time, because at 71, I work nonstop. And as soon as I open my eyes, Daniel says to me, BrainTap? And I'm like, well, I really want to be in the swimming pool. And I go, yeah, okay. So you know, have a date with Patrick.
There you go.
Have a date with Patrick, because it will change your brain function. It will give you more capacity. All of that those myths and those barriers that Patrick just broke them all in here. Please, I am absolutely imploring you to say yes to the capacity of your brain to live as the powerful, divine, high frequency being that you are. Patrick Porter, what a gift you are, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for helping me. I'm on a mission to better 1 billion brains, and you're helping me do that, so I appreciate it.
You're welcome. God bless.